discuss what is a comet and the formation of a comet. To understand what a comet is, we have to start again from the beginnings in hydrogen and star formation via a black hole and continue along to a supernova. Once we have reached this position where the sun begins to generate its own magnetic force, it is using that energy and that magnetic force to heat around it thermally, by thermal convection, the gas cloud, therefore attracting the hydrogen ions directly into its center. Let us call this process a feeding process by the sun. This feeding process allows the sun to use the magnetic arms to move around the universe, searching for better and bigger hydrogen clouds. At the same time, it is competing with other galaxies which also have a magnetic north and magnetic south, which creates a system of repulsion which explains why galaxies will never collide. A galaxy will compete with another galaxy for its energy, as with a hydrogen cloud. So what you have in the system with the formation over time is that the sun or the star becomes less and less able to achieve its normal absorption of hydrogen, or it's not able to absorb enough food. And so in order to normalize, or in order to balance itself, it needs to release the planets. So you would have a sun, say for example our solar system, which has 9 planets. If our sun cannot obtain enough energy, then it would release its Neptune, its Pluto, its Uranus, up to its Jupiter, in order to allow it to survive and to keep its same magnetic force. The issue is, in this system, is that these planets eventually drift into other solar systems and observe the characteristics of moons like Ganymede and Io and Titan, and you will begin to see that these are not moons but planets which are drifted away from the main solar system, which release them because of its inability to hold on to, or its ability to adjust itself to deal with the magnetic force. When this happens, and it happens long enough, and there is less and less material, the star begins to become weaker and weaker and weaker, releasing more and more and more of its planets and its satellites. Over a period of time, as it releases its material, it begins to feed on itself, meaning that it begins to feed on the hydrogen that is within its main system. It begins to cannibalize its solar system also by attracting some of the planets and consuming them in order to generate the forces necessary for its survival. As that continues, it reaches a point where the star alone remains. And it is at this point that it no longer has energy to consume around it. So it begins to consume the heavy elements within it. So effectively what you have is that that system begins to eat itself, therefore causing several things. Its temperature reduces from our yellow sun to what you would call your red dwarf. So it begins to glow and becomes white dwarf. So it begins to glow less hot. So what you have developing is that the sun is cooling, and it is going through itself the full evolution of planets. So the sun becomes cool and cooler. But what you have is that because it no longer has the ability to move around using its magnetism, it moves around in the last trajectory that it had when it was at its highest peak. So in other words, if it has a momentum which takes it along point A to point B when it was in its heyday of development, in its waning years it will continue along the same path, encircling that process. Now, because it also has a magnetic ability, or it has ferromagnetism, it will also be attracted to the north and south poles of the sun. So eventually it will become a satellite of another galaxy or another solar system. This means that that rotation that we see going around, that we see something white which has water by its nature of decay of uranium and all the processes explained in the evolution of planets, it confirms the reason why there is water on the sun, or why there is water on a comet. So essentially what you have is that comets do not bring water to the planet. I will deal with that in another clip. But comets, by their nature and the process of evolution, where the sun is dying, begins to absorb or begins to process and decay to the same system that is prevalent in the evolution of planets. This creates a situation where the planets display, or the comets display, water, where we erroneously believe that water came from the water on the planets came from the comets. But there is water on the planets and water on the comets as a result of their own planetary evolution. So this means that this answers the question of why there is water on the comets. And in another clip I will explain why there is water on the planets. So as a result of this system, you can see that comets are nothing more and nothing less than stars which are dying, which are attracted to our suns because of the magnetic force, the same magnetic force which allows the planet to rotate around it or revolve around it. So essentially you have a similar system of magnetism, not a warp in the space-time continuum and all of the other fairy tales that you hear every day. But this is simply because of magnetism. So the comets would be attracted to the sun, and that is why they would keep on coming along the same elliptical path, because of the same reason of magnetism and polarity.